Alright, it's been a while since I watched the Fatal Fury motion picture. That movie was highly entertaining and funnier than it had any right to be. It also had comically bad dialogue, so I wanted to go ahead and give the second Fatal Fury movie a try and see if this one fared any better. I don't know if I'll be reviewing the third Fatal Fury movie because that one was kind of a disaster. So we're starting off already with the introduction of Wolfgang Krauser at a palace. It seems it's almost like a castle of sorts. He sits down to play on the organ. By the way, I gotta hand it to him. This song he's playing on the organ is crazy. We cut to the Pow Pow restaurant, where some henchmen show up, where I believe his name is Lawrence, shows up to Billy Kane with one of Geese's henchmen. I'm assuming he's dead now. At least that's how it appears when his lifeless body is tossed to Billy Kane. Then we get a helicopter touching down at, I imagine, where Geese's hideout used to be. Lawrence presents Krauser with Billy Kane's, Kane I guess. So I'm assuming Billy Kane's been killed too. So Krauser pays Geese a visit and throws Billy Kane's canes at him. Krauser's looking for the man who defeated Geese, and Geese gives up the name of Terry Bogard, and then the song ends. So I'm assuming Terry's working on like a shipyard of some sort. So Terry then chooses to mock this child who's having trouble catching fish. Terry offers the boy some food because he's hungry. I'm gonna be honest too, this kid's a bit of a jerk. They suddenly come across these kids that are happening to be playing Fatal Fury amongst themselves. It's the most meta scene in an anime I think I've ever seen. So there's a fat kid dressed as Terry, and then there's an Andy and a Joe, and there's a fake Geese. Ironically, the Andy looks more like Andy as this kid than the real one did in the last movie. Apparently these kids think Terry Bogard's dead. That pisses the kid off because he's a big Terry Bogard fan, I guess. So he chooses to fight these three kids at one time. Of course, he gets his ass kicked. At least for a while before getting away from the two kids and then just beating the hell out of child Terry here. This little boy took about 10 punches to the face without protecting himself. That kid might be dead. And this movie just is not gonna chill in the beginning of it. So then Kaphwan shows up out of nowhere and challenges Terry to a fight. The boy is shocked to learn that the guy that was helping him out all this time was actually Terry Bogard. So Kim says he's gonna challenge the guy who defeated Geese Howard. Goes about as well as you would imagine. Terry hits him with one burn knuckle. Kim's down. He gets a good shot in on Terry, who's weak for some reason. Terry keeps acting like he's way more hurt than he is. I don't know what's going on with Terry right now. And he hits Kim with the Hakyoku Seiken Senpu kick. That's what he said. So after knocking Kim into the water, he saves him from drowning. And once Kim regains consciousness, he thanks Terry from the fight. I don't know how much later in the day this is because it's dark now. So the little kid tells Terry that his name is Tony, and he asks to be Terry's new disciple. Obviously Terry refuses, but the kid pesters him anyways. Terry then senses a problem's arising and tells Tony to get lost. And out of the shadows waiting for Terry is Wolfgang Krauser. Krauser gives Terry a fighting critique, telling him he needed to use his legs more and he fought sloppy. Somehow Terry is shocked by this, like he's amazed that Wolfgang could use his eyes. Then Wolfgang appears behind Terry. Now that should have been surprising. He took his hat off his head. And Wolfgang acknowledges that Terry doesn't have a will to fight anymore. I love it. He's just straight up saying that this is not Terry Bogard he's fighting. So Terry says he's gonna go for the super hurricane kick, but apparently has a really bad leg. Wolfgang seemingly throws the same attack at Terry and lays him out. Krauser apparently starts having flashbacks of images of a dead man. So Tony does Terry no favors by saying that he wasn't at 100%, and Krauser says that he wants Terry to rest up and then come to find him in Germany. Krauser then has a flashback to his half-brother Geese Howard trying to attack his father.
Curse you to hell, Rudolph Krauser!
We're slowly starting to get some awful voice acting again. Geese apparently has a plan for Krauser. What that is, who knows? So Terry's having nightmares about Krauser. He wakes up at Tony's house with his mother attending to him. Apparently Terry was out for 3 days. How Tony somehow was able to get Terry to this house, I really don't know. So Terry decides to leave even though his wounds haven't healed yet. Tony's not having any of it and doesn't want Terry to leave yet. So Terry gets on this train and heads out as he drowns his sorrows in some whiskey. And Tony inexplicably somehow got on top of this train and just chilling up there while it's going wherever Terry's headed to. And Terry somehow knows that Tony's been following him the whole time. By the way, Terry's slowly becoming a drunk. He's also getting beat up in bars, so I guess he's completely lost the will of the fight entirely. Tony saves him again and Terry tells him to go home, but honestly, he needs to stop doing that. If Tony wasn't saving him, he'd probably be dead by now. Terry's just giving up trying to fight and find Krauser. He throws his gloves in the trash. Extreme by Terry, but whatever. Finally, we cut to Mai. She returns to Master Jubei because apparently Andy's back. Master Jubei assaults Mai and immediately pays for it. Did not see that coming at all. We cut to Andy. Thank God he looks like Andy and not however the hell he looked in the last Fatal Fury movie. He even sounds better. Just for comparison's sake, this to this.
Mai, it's good to see you.
You're going down, man! Yeah!
Anyways, Mai attacks him. She's upset that Andy returned to Japan and didn't try to contact her. She's mad at Andy for not trying to find his fiance, which is news to Andy. So apparently Andy had no idea he was engaged to get married. And now we get Joe as well, who also has a significantly better voice actor. Meanwhile, Master Jubei informs Andy and Joe that Terry's been defeated by Krauser. He informs them that apparently Krauser is part of a royal family that actually backs most European governments and militaries. Checks out, I guess. Once again, we get this awesome song, only now it's played by an orchestra. Said Krauser's known as the Emperor of Darkness as a result of his ties to starting militias and wars. This also explained that Krauser apparently killed his father. Apparently, the song that keeps playing in this movie was Krauser's father's favorite song, and Krauser said he plays it one day a year, every year, to acknowledge his father, so apparently he only acknowledges his dad one day out of an entire year. Excuse me, he only permits himself to acknowledge his father one day out of the year. Somebody needed a hug growing up. So Andy wants to challenge Krauser, but Master Jubei tells him if he wants to challenge Krauser, he has to go through him first. Okay. Come back to drunk Terry, who's getting ready to get beat up yet again. This Freddie Mercury looking guy sounds exactly like Korn from Dragon Ball Z, by the way.
So sorry to disturb you, but we wanted to have a little chat with you, alright?
They threaten to rob Terry, but Terry has no money to give, plus he says he's not going to do it anyways. He spits in the guy's face and knocks him out. Tony hears about a fight at a park and goes to check it out to see if it's Terry or not. And Terry goes back to drinking. Now we cut to Master Jubei versus Andy. If I'm not mistaken, this is Master Jubei's stage from Fatal Fury, or it looks mighty close to it. This movie sticks way closer to the games than the actual first one did. I have to give it credit. So once the fish jumps, they immediately start fighting. Joe's still giving cringy critiques of the fight like he did in the last movie, only the dialogue doesn't sound nowhere near as unnatural as it did then. Anyways, Andy defeats Master Jubei, so he's going off to fight Krauser. Joe goes with him, and Master Jubei tells Mai to track them down to make sure they can stay safe. And he tells Mai to make sure that Andy doesn't fight Krauser no matter what, as he contemplates retirement. So, because of the scuffle at the park, Terry goes to jail and somehow Tony bailed him out. It's revealed with help from Joe. Joe tells Terry that Andy's going ahead to fight Krauser, and Terry pleads with Joe not to let him do it. Of course, Joe doesn't care. Mai and Andy are scoping out Krauser's hideout, and Lawrence apparently knows that they're out there, which, I mean, they're out in the ocean in the middle of nowhere. I guess it's easy to find them. Andy discovers that Krauser's on vacation and won't be back for a month, and so Mai thinks that that's a fantastic time for her and Andy to do other things, like shopping. Lawrence immediately shows up while Andy, for whatever reason, is no longer around Mai. I don't know where Andy went to. And Lawrence surprisingly asks Mai out on a date. Andy senses something is wrong, so he goes looking for Mai, who's left a clue as to where she is with her fans. Somehow Mai disrobes and immediately has her fighting clothes on underneath it. How, I don't know, but it's anime. So she immediately starts fighting Lawrence, and she's handling her own for a while. So Lawrence leaves her up for display and cuts her clothes up and hangs her to lure Andy out. I don't know what tearing her clothes apart was necessary for, but alright. Andy fights Lawrence and quickly disposes him so he can save Mai. Of course, she's happy. By the way, I should disclose by now that Mai's big plan to keep Andy from fighting Krauser is to seduce Andy. Not gonna lie, so far it's kinda working. We cut back to yet another person threatening to fight a drunk Terry. Only this time it's Axel Hawk. So Tony actually challenges Axel Hawk to a fight, as ridiculous as that is. Terry has a flashback of himself getting beat up as a kid, so he finally jumps in to save Tony. Took him long enough, he just let this child get beat up by this grown man, but whatever. He hands Terry his gloves, that I guess Tony got out of the trash can, and now Terry's ready to fight. So he quickly disposes of Axel Hawk, and now him and Tony are on their way to find Krauser. So now apparently Krauser's back home. He receives room service from an awfully disguised Joe. Krauser immediately knows that it's Joe, by the way. If Terry and Andy can't beat Krauser, I don't know what Joe thought he was about to do here, but whatever. We'll just let him have his fun, I guess. Then Krauser says what has to be the craziest statement I think I've ever heard in my life.
Once again, you're being far too loud. Die quietly, please, or I shall have to ask you to leave.
So now Joe is about to land, and I quote, his newest, strongest technique ever. Sounds like something you would make up with playing with your friends when you didn't want to lose, so if they wanted to do something, you just made up a super ultra technique with some crazy name. Doesn't matter, it doesn't work. So Terry's training to prepare for Krauser and seemingly repair some of the damage he's done to his body from fighting and drinking, I guess. As we cut to a Joe that's basically on the brink of death at this point. Wonder who could have seen this coming. Terry has flashbacks of Master Tongue and Lily. Seeing all the people close to Terry that's died, I think Tony might need to watch out at this point. So after learning that Joe's in the hospital, Terry goes to visit him. Apparently it said Joe has 24 broken bones and severe damages to his internal organs. That doesn't sound good at all. It sounds like he's about to die. So once again, Andy and Terry encounter each other for the first time, and just like the last movie, they randomly have a fight. And again, it looks far better this time than it did in the last movie. Don't want to keep harping on that, but I do feel the need that, like, the last movie was so horrible. So they have a quick little sparring match in the moonlight. And like the last movie with Geese, I don't understand why they're wasting their time fighting each other as opposed to using this time to actually challenge Krauser. But it doesn't matter. Terry defeats Andy. Andy gives Terry his blessing to go ahead and challenge Krauser, which I imagine Andy's in no shape to do it at this point. So now Mai has 2 mangled up people to look after in the hospital. Terry's preparing for death as he gets ready to confront Krauser, as Krauser once again plays his father's favorite song, and he confronts Krauser and the final battle begins. This fight almost takes place exactly like their last fight did, only this time Terry actually gets a little bit of damage on Krauser. They're gonna tear this castle apart, by the way. He even happens to make Krauser bleed this time. Also, by the way, Tony's present. Why in the hell would Terry bring Tony with? Well, never mind, Tony would just sneak in regardless. Terry hits Krauser with a power geyser, and it destroys half the palace. So much for that organ. By the way, how they animated that Krauser wave actually looked crazy. So apparently Terry has tapped into the dark Shado, it seems like, but he's tearing Krauser apart. And Krauser just says he's been defeated? Like he hasn't been knocked down or anything crazy happened to him, he's just given up. And just commits, well, I can't say the word on YouTube, but you get the picture. Like he just jumps out of the palace into the ocean, like he drowns himself. I feel like that escalated extremely fast, like, what? Anyway, Geese's spy watches it all. I also should have mentioned a long time ago that he's just been watching the entire ordeal of this movie from behind the scenes. So now Terry grabs Tony, and they leave. As apparently the news of Krauser's demise reaches Geese, so his plan must have worked. By the way, for the record, Geese does not appear in the third Fatal Fury movie, so this future plot is just never expanded on. So Terry drops Tony off to his mom, and Tony pleads to stay strong enough to take care of his mother, as Terry almost hits the bender pose from a Breakfast Club as the movie ends. Not gonna lie, aside from the randomness of Krauser's death, which I guess because he knew that he couldn't actually defeat Terry, he just gave up and decided to end it all. It's still kind of random to me, but whatever. Nitpicking there, of course. This was actually very good. I actually recommend watching Fatal Fury 2 the movie because it's a pretty decent animation, to be quite honest, especially for a fighting game adaptation. And as I've stated before, I suggest people watch the first Fatal Fury movie just because of how awful it is. So, there you are.